Hello, everybody. Whew, got a heck of a little tale that we're going to dive into today. I'm going to relate a very honest and unflattering story about myself, but hopefully it's helpful in some sort of way if I spill my guts about this. So, I received a question from a member of the Linchpin community basically asking about I guess the appropriate term would be like body dysmorphia. Just not happy with your appearance, never satisfied, always chasing perfection, falling short, and just being generally unhappy and miserable. When you look in the mirror with what you see. And they asked if I had any suggestions and asked if I had any experience with it. And what's funny is that yes, I do have experience with it. I've never shared that, and I rolled it around because as much of a public forward facing, whatever you want to call it, persona I have or whatnot, I still have a private life, a family and things that I hold close and don't exactly throw out there for the world. So I rolled it around as to whether or not I even wanted to go down this rabbit hole with the interwebs, but why not, right? If it helps somebody, cool. So yes, we'll talk about my own relative issues with I guess you could say body dysmorphia or unhappy with your appearance and all that stuff. So I'll try to keep this as quick as possible. It started quite some time ago. I'm not even sure what you can say these days in 2020 as to what's politically correct or not correct, or if the terms have changed or something. But when I was growing up, I was what was referred to as a fat kid. And these days you may have to say heavy kid or something. I'm not sure. But I had too much fat in my body. I was too heavy. I had too much adipose tissue. Whatever is the phraseology that you would like to go ahead and embrace, that's what I was. I was just a very little heavy kid. So anyway, and now looking back on it, I'm not shocked as to why. Nobody knew anything about nutrition or how to eat or whatever, just whatever commercials you saw on TV. That's what you're supposed to put in your body. And so, I mean, I just look at most of the breakfasts that I ate, and holy cow. I mean, I think I rotated through three general breakfasts when I was a kid, which my mother made, and they were delicious. God bless her. It was either just a big stack of buttermilk pancakes, homemade, fantastic, and just drenched in maple syrup. I mean, soaked in maple syrup. Um, a pile that would suit a lumberjack, and I would eat that every day. Or multiple bowls of Frosted Flakes cereal. How delicious is that? Or how about this? Does anybody remember this? The Hostess company that makes like cupcakes and pastries and all kinds of other things that will eventually, not lead to long-term health and fitness. The Host is the donuts, like the little donuts, the little powdered ones. Back in the day, we're talking the 80s here. They used to come in a clear plastic bag, and I don't even know how many were in this like plastic bag full of these small powdered donuts. We'd sit down. I would just be that bag would be placed in front of me at breakfast, and I would just slowly consume the entire bag, until the bag was gone, and that would be breakfast. I mean, and that just happened for years and years. So not shocking that I didn't have I didn't have amazing body composition. But hey, that's how we were rolling in the 80s in the Sherwood household. So, yeah, I was way too heavy. In 8th grade, and I'm not a tall person in general, I'm 5'8". Uh, but in 8th grade, I weighed 185 pounds in 8th grade, and I was not a tall human being. So we can go ahead and make the assumption that that was not a good 185 pounds. And I'm here to tell you it was not a good 185 pounds. So, you know, that's just how I grew up. Now, luckily, uh, I always had a good crew of friends around me, but even though I had plenty of friends, I was not happy with my appearance. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist even in 8th grade to know that this wasn't good, didn't look good, didn't want to take your shirt off if you went to the pool or something like that or down to the ocean. Like you just kind of, that kind of deal. The kids swimming with a shirt on, that was me. Um, Anybody who knows me won't be shocked by this. You know, didn't really play too many sports, wasn't really gifted in sports. I did love to play in the woods. I did love to be outside and do stuff like this, but never really embraced sports. I didn't sit inside the house and just watch TV either, but sports kind of weren't my thing, and that continues to this day. You need somebody to throw a beautiful spiral with a football. I'm not your guy. You go ahead and get somebody else for that. So then we enter high school as a a heavy set young man as well, and nobody wants to enter high school as a heavy set young man. That's just high school is a vicious place, and hey, that's how it was. And of course, back in the day, now we're even talking before the internet was commonplace, right? I mean, so this is back in the day, pre-internet, where there weren't, everybody calling everybody out for, whatever it happens to be, harsh language or being a bully. I mean, so you just walked in and, it was go time. And so that was high school. That was the high school experience that most of us had back in the day. That was rough. Um, Body didn't really change that much, in freshman year. And then sometime in my sophomore year in high school, I I decided that I wanted to become a Navy SEAL. And it seemed like a ridiculous, over the top goal, quite frankly, at that point in time, especially given my physical capacity or lack thereof, I should say. I'd had some military in my family, but I didn't come from like a rah-rah military family, and there certainly was no pressure to do zilch anything in the military in any way, shape, or form. It was just something that I had been interested in, probably by watching too many Chuck Norris movies and too many episodes of the A-Team. So I started to go to crazy things back in the day that people had to go to before the internet. It's called libraries. And I would go to these libraries and read books on the military. And after reading on the military, found out that each branch of the military had their own special operations community. Started reading about each one of those. I had no particular allegiance to any one in any way, shape, or form. And I kind of figured, well, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to go into the military, I might as well try to do like whatever seems like the toughest. And so I just read and read, and from everything that I read, it seemed like the Navy and the SEALs and their selection process through BUDS. BUDS is basically SEAL selection, SEAL training, if you will, SEAL qualification course. I was like, "Oh, that sounds like it. That's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to start training for, and maybe, change my body and capacity and physical capability." Because I kind of had in my head, as simple as it was, well, if the day comes that I'm good enough to do that, to go to BUDS, to go to SEAL school, and if I make it, how in the world could I not be happy with the way that I look, right? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I'm capable enough and pass all the tests and the qualifications and the times and the requirements and the runs and the pull-ups and the swims for months and months and months, and I stand there at graduation day and they're like, "Yep, you earned it. You graduated SEAL school." I'm gonna look amazing. I'm gonna look incredible, like some sort of Greek god. This is gonna be phenomenal. And I'm gonna plan on going in the military anyway, so might as well do it. So that was kind of my little harebrained scheme. There was other reasons for it, but that was certainly wrapped into there as somebody who wasn't happy with their appearance. So I started reading more of these books that you would find in libraries about SEALs in Vietnam and BUDS and how to train for BUDS and what were some of the run times and how should you prepare for it and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so um, I just started diving into all that as well. This was around my sophomore year in high school. Now I realized that my nutrition was not good, but also nobody had any clue as to what good nutrition was back then either. It was just gotta eat your whole grains. On the box of Cheerios, it says that it's heart healthy. So if you have, a bowl of Cheerios every day with skim milk, then you must be on the right track. I mean, so, and a whole wheat bagel. Who wouldn't want a whole wheat bagel with that bowl of Cheerios with the skim milk. So, anyway, wasn't eating well, but my didn't know any better nutritional strategy was I'm going to keep eating whatever it is that I'm eating, but I'm just going to cut it in half. I mean, how awful is that? But I didn't know any better. So, if I had pancakes for breakfast, if I regularly had three pancakes, I still had pancakes, but I would have one and a half. If Friday night I regularly had a pizza with my friend, I would still have pizza on Friday night, but I would eat half of whatever I normally and traditionally consumed. And I played this game. That's just what I did with my nutrition because I didn't have any resources. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I lived in a, small town in Massachusetts. It was what it was. So now I've reduced all my junky food by 50%. I'm still eating junky food though, but at least I'm eating 50% less. I know that I got to get in better shape. There's a stationary bike down in New England. We've got basements. We call them cellars. Down in the basement in the cellar of our house. My mother had this old stationary bike. I'd hop on the stationary bike and I would just pedal as if the devil was chasing me to the best of my ability for 45 minutes 4 times a week because I just figured I had to do something. So I'd do that as I was reading up on what, how I should really train to go to BUD/S, to go to SEAL school. So I also had an old school, remember the Joe Weider weight sets that had the thinnest barbell in the world, and the plates were actually hard plastic filled with sand, and the bench was so rickety that you were terrified every time that you got on it. So I'd pedal on that stationary bike, and I would just do some bench press with the old Joe Weider weight set, hit some bicep curls as if those were going to help me in any way, shape, or form. No idea what a squat was. No idea what a deadlift was. No idea what a power clean was. No idea. I mean, none of that stuff. It was just bench press, bicep curls, and stationary bikes. And that was it. And pull-ups. And I'd do pull-ups. And as I continued reading about how I should train, well then, I finally started getting out there and training with a bit more regularity and structure based upon some programs that I'd read in these books. Man, these books, hindsight 2020. If somebody asked me how to train for BUD/S these days, I would not recommend that they do what I did or what these books said. Holy cow! It was just some antiquated training that was just death by volume. So I started going on these just psychotic running programs and all. It was just death by volume, 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 out there just pounding the pavement. I do this my sophomore, junior, senior year in high school. I actually lost 30 pounds. So I went from 185 to about 155. And then I enter college. And then my goal in college is really not to care in any way, shape, or form about how I do in any of my classes. It's to make sure that when I graduate college, I am ready to go into the Navy and to complete BUD/S in a successful manner. And classes are just these nuisance things that I have to do between training sessions. I will also say, even when I dropped down from 185 pounds to 155 pounds by the end of high school, I was happy with the reduction in the number on the scale, but I was not happy when I looked in the mirror with how my body looked. As confusing as that is, the two didn't align. And of course, now I understand why. I was just doing long, slow, everything, low intensity, everything, no functional movements, no compound movements, no large loads, long distances quickly. So again, hindsight being 2020, I'm well aware now as to some things that I should have and could have done differently, but back then didn't know. We're talking about the 90s here, the early 90s. So now I enter college, and I'm bringing the heat with the training volume in college, and also figuring that with all this additional training, I have to start being content with my physical appearance, right? But that never manifested. It never, ever, ever manifested. I just continued to train my tail off in some borderline suicidal fashion, and was never happy with how I looked, even if times got better in runs and whatnot. So in college, I was training, I don't know, 3 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week. That's all I did, period, end of story. Because I realized if I showed up to buds not ready, then that was just a death sentence and I might as well just quit. So I poured my heart and soul into all of that. I mean, I could go down a rabbit hole and just make everybody laugh with some of the training that I did back in the day. And I didn't, but here's the thing, I didn't know any better. These were these books that I was reading who were written by, as far as I know, people who were SEALs said, this is what you have to do. This is the training plan if you want to go to BUD&S and be a SEAL. So I just did it to the letter of the law. The running was insane, how much we would run every week. I mean, and terrible things like mile repeats on the tracks to long days that are 12 miles long. I mean, and everything in between. Just run, 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 run. We never did any sprinting, like 100s, 200s, 50s, 400s. And I think now, hindsight 2020, that was such a tragic mistake. But again, some of the knowledge that's commonplace now was not commonplace back then. And not everybody, they didn't, that book certainly didn't understand it. These other books certainly didn't understand that sprinting would help your long distance, but the other way is not true. So anyway, I digress. So that was happening constantly. Hour-long to 90-minute swims in the pool were happening multiple times a week as well. And then the amount of pull-ups, push-ups, dips, bar dips, didn't do ring dips back then, and like sit-ups and flutter kicks that I did is comical. And I'll share it with you. Please, nobody should do this, okay? But this is what these old books from Vietnam said that I had to do. And it's also probably related to why I struggle getting my hands over my head now later in life, because I did so many pull-ups and tightened up my lats and chest so much. If you do 1 up to 10 back down to 1, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That comes out to 100 repetitions. This is what these Vietnam books said that I should do for pull-ups. That I should do that pyramid, 1 up to 10. Of course, this is not kipping, mind you. This is strict. Everything is strict. 1 up to 10, back down to 1 of strict pull-ups, palms facing away from me. Then, okay, so there's 100 strict pull-ups. Then, this is the same session, mind you. Then, 1 up to 10, back down to 1, strict pull-ups, palms facing me. So now we've got another 100 strict pull-ups that we did. Then, 1 up to 10, back down to 1, strict pull-ups, but behind the neck pull-ups. So now we're at 300 strict pull-ups. Oh, we're not done. Then 1 up to 10, back down to 1, what was called commando pull-ups, which if you're unfamiliar with commando pull-ups, you kind of have your hands in like a mixed grip and you pull to one shoulder and to another shoulder. So for those at home doing the math, one session, which took forever, included 400 strict pull-ups. 400 strict pull-ups. I would do that 2 to 3 times a week. So my weekly pull-up volume was 800 to 1200 strict pull-ups every week for 4 years while I went through college. And then I would play that same game of 1 up to 10 back down to 1 on push-ups with a regular hand width, diamond push-ups where your hands are right next to each other, wide grip push-ups, and then dive bomber push-ups. So there would be 400 different repetitions of various push-ups that would also occur. And then we had a tremendous amount of dips that were assigned, and then just flutter kicks and sit-ups until you thought that you were going to black out. This is all with the running and this one. It was just death by volume to a ridiculous degree. So that's what I did for 4 years. Never pressed a barbell overhead. So shocking that my overhead position's terrible, right? So all those calisthenics, all that running, all that swimming, all that everything, still absolutely in no way, shape, or form content with my physical appearance. not content at all. College ends. There's some stuff happening. I'm going to ROTC. I've got to go to mini buds between my junior and senior year, which is kind of like the screener to see if you're actually going to get into buds and all that good stuff. Long story short, I get one of the slots to show up and go to buds. So after I graduate college, I go to buds. We'll encapsulate this very quickly and just say buds sucked very greatly and I graduated. So I graduate, so graduate buds. There's that day that I'm talking about. There's that day that I dreamed about as a sophomore in high school. So whatever that was, 7 years prior, 8 years prior. So 7, 8 years of just dedicated, maniacal, full discipline, shutting out all distractions of my life training. The goal becomes realized. I'm standing there, graduation day. I have successfully made it. I have graduated buds. All of the physical requirements that you must meet, that the military has put forward for you to be a successful SEAL candidate, I did it. I'm there. I met them all. And I was not happy with how I looked. I mean, and if that isn't just a crazy thing to say now, hindsight looking back at it, I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. If that wasn't going to make me happy, then what in the heck was? I mean, that's almost like a problem that it has no solution. It's like, hey, I'm sorry, you're just never going to be content, period, with your appearance. If you can do all this and you can perform this way and you have this physical capacity and you're not happy when you look in the mirror, good luck to you, I mean, maybe a professional should dive into what's going on there. But no, graduated buds, not happy. Did my time in the Navy, not content with how I look. Got out of that. Started doing CrossFit, 16 years ago. And even in like my best of my best, PRs, Fran was always kind of like a good, really wheelhouse workout for me. You just have to stay ahead of the terrible wave of pain that's coming your way. And below parallel thruster, to just driving it overhead, using your legs to drive the barbell overhead, paired with a pull-up. Obviously now you've known how many pull-ups that I've done, so I usually didn't mind a pull-up. It was a decent workout for me. And even in the point where like my best of my best days, I was in, around the 2:30-ish time for Fran. And even when I could do that physical capacity, which, right? I mean, most people would be really happy with a 2:30 Fran, wouldn't they? Like, really happy. I was happy with my time, but I was not happy with my physical appearance. Isn't that crazy? Or sad or whatever you want to say, but that is the truth. And that's just how I rolled for the overwhelming majority of my life. And I have to say, it's probably only in the last 5 years. And I wish I could tell you how. I don't know how. Only about in the last 5 years that I finally have started feeling content with, physical appearance and just kind of letting the pressure off of myself that it's never good enough, that it's never whatever. And again, I don't know what changed in the last 5 years. I think maybe we got tired. It's exhausting, exhausting to live under that continual pressure of not being happy. It just wears you down. And maybe at different points in everyone's life, somebody has to be like, you know what, screw it. Just can't do this anymore. And now, of course, compared to what I knew when I was, a teenager in high school, I know how to eat properly. I know how to manage my workouts and my rest. I know how to not put too much volume to my body so that I'm worn down and tired all the time. I understand functional movements and intensity and whatnot and all that good stuff. And so now I have somehow found a place to be where I do what I should do to work out, what I know is good for me for long-term health and fitness. I eat as clean as I can while keeping my sanity and trying to be a human being having fun on planet Earth and all that good stuff. And then life is just so much better. It's just so much better when you let yourself off the hook for that and just let it go. And if you know that you're doing good stuff, you know that you're doing what you should do because you've surrounded yourself with the facts and the right information for fitness and nutrition and health, then you just say, I'm okay. I'm okay. Like whatever it is, when I look in the mirror or do whatever, it's all okay. I'm on the right path. Life's good. And living in that other world of never being content, always being unhappy, it never being good enough is is certainly not a path to happiness, that's for darn sure. But even worse than that, it's just a path to increased anxiety, and then everything that you are doing is probably going to become less fun. You're not going to enjoy working out. You're going to have some issues with food. Nobody wants to live that life. So, yes. Long answer to the question is yes. I absolutely certainly have dealt with all this stuff, and I wish that I was smarter and was able to figure it out 15 years ago compared to 5 years ago, but I'm a slow learner. I'm a slow learner, and I'm here to tell you that it's so much better when you just let yourself be. Do the right stuff. Trust the process, as corny and cliche as that ridiculous phrase is. But when I say trust the process, I just mean surround yourself with good people, get yourself into a good community, know that you're doing good workouts, know that you're eating the right stuff, and just let the cards fall where they may. And for most of us, that's going to be a good recipe. So that's it. Okay. Well, I hope that helped. Enjoy the day, everybody. We've got some clean and jerks, I believe, today, with some other things as well. I'm going to go get myself some breakfast, and it won't be 3 pancakes covered in syrup. It won't be 2 bowls of Frosted Flakes, and it won't be a obnoxious amount of small powdered donuts. It will be bacon, eggs, and fruit. So, times have changed. Have a great day, and we will talk later.